Are you ready to learn the harsh truth about survival in the most unforgiving and deadly climate on our planet? Welcome to the channel. Today we're heading to a place where the slightest mistake or delay can cost you your life. Picture this scene. The first rays of the scorching sun over endless sand dunes mark the beginning of a truly hellish ordeal that only a select few can endure. With every passing minute, the air temperature soars to unbelievable, downright shocking levels, turning every step you take into grueling, exhausting labor. The ground beneath your feet becomes so scorching that modern shoes with thick soles literally begin to melt as you walk, and the dry air mercilessly burns your lungs with every breath. It seems simply impossible for a human to survive here. But what if I told you that ancient tribes didn't just survive in this inferno? They did so with masterful skill. What you're about to learn today is guaranteed to turn your understanding of the human body's hidden reserves upside down. Be sure to watch this video all the way to the end. There, I'll reveal an incredible secret you won't find in ordinary textbooks. You'll discover how the indigenous peoples of North America not only covered enormous distances across the scorching desert in extreme heat, but also managed to remain completely invisible, like ghosts, to their fiercest enemies. A secret passed down from generation to generation challenges our perception of human endurance. The indigenous peoples viewed the desert not as a hostile environment, but as a system of strict rules. The heat, reaching 120 degrees Fahrenheit, dictated a unique rhythm of existence. Every action was calculated with mathematical precision to conserve precious energy. Superfluous movements were completely eliminated, giving way to a smooth and measured rhythm. At midday, the Earth's surface turned into a veritable scorching frying pan. The temperature of the rocks reached such heights that touching them caused an instant burn. Crossing these areas required special preparation of the feet and footwear. Moccasins had double or triple soles made of dense organic materials. Layers of dry grass or special leaves were often placed inside for additional thermal insulation. This design allowed one to move across the scorching ground without injury. Their relationship with their own bodies was based on a deep understanding of physiology. Breathing was controlled with remarkable precision to minimize moisture loss. Inhalations were made exclusively through the nose, which helped conserve precious saliva. Quick dashes alternated with long periods of absolute stillness in the shade. The ability to blend into the landscape helped conserve energy while waiting for the right moment. The sun's rays dictated the conditions for camouflage and route selection. Movement took place primarily along the bottoms of deep canyons or along dry riverbeds. These natural depressions provided welcome shade at certain times of day. Scouts carefully studied the sun's movement to ensure they always remained in cool areas. Knowledge of the terrain allowed them to plot a path from one shelter to another. The desert became a complex chessboard where the heat controlled the pieces. Architectural skills also played a huge role in survival. Temporary shelters were built with the direction of prevailing winds in mind. Shrubs and branches were woven together to create a draft and trap dust. The thermal mass of rocky overhangs was used for cooling during the day. Knowledge of thermoregulation accumulated over centuries made it possible to create comfortable conditions even at midday. Physical training began at a very early age and continued uninterrupted. The ability to go without food and water for long periods was honed through daily exercises. The body gradually adapted to minimal resource consumption under stressful conditions. Muscles grew accustomed to functioning under constant oxygen deprivation caused by the hot air. Endurance became the key advantage in the struggle against the forces of nature. Interacting with the environment required incredible powers of observation. Changes in the color of the rocks indicated how hot they were at any given moment. The direction of the hot air currents pointed to hidden sources of drafts. Knowledge of such subtleties helped us avoid the most dangerous sections of the route. Nature generously shared its clues with those who knew how to read them. Their gear consisted only of the bare essentials. Heavy items were left in hiding places so as not to slow their pace. Every gram of weight carried greatly increased energy expenditure under the sun. Therefore, only lightweight natural materials were used to make clothing and gear. A loose fit ensured the necessary ventilation for the body during long treks. Mental fortitude was just as important as physical strength. Panic in the desert inevitably led to a rapid loss of orientation and death. Calmness and level-headedness were maintained even in the most critical situations. The ability to control one's emotions allowed for making the right decisions on the fly. The mind remained cool, despite the scorching temperatures of the surrounding environment. These methods prove that human potential is virtually limitless. Strict discipline transformed an ordinary person into an ideal inhabitant of the scorching wastelands. The principles of energy conservation and the wise allocation of resources work flawlessly. The knowledge of indigenous peoples continues to amaze modern climate researchers. I'd be very interested to hear your perspective on this topic. What do you think about these survival methods? Share your thoughts in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. What if everything you've been taught is outdated and doesn't work in extreme conditions? The problem of the body overheating was solved in completely unconventional ways. Cooling the body was the main priority during peak sun hours. Indigenous peoples used natural mud as a powerful thermoregulator for the skin. A thin layer of clay, applied to exposed areas, acted as a perfect shield. As it dried, the clay absorbed heat, significantly lowering body temperature. Finding moist soil in the desert was an extremely difficult task. They knew exactly where the dried-up springs were, where moisture remained deep underground. By digging through the top layer of scorching sand, they could extract a life-saving cool mass. They used this mixture to cover their faces, hands, and other vulnerable areas. This mud armor also protected them from the harmful effects of ultraviolet rays. The sap of desert plants played an equally important role in thermoregulation. Some plant species contained a thick liquid with excellent cooling properties. Sliced, fleshy leaves were applied to the body's pulse points. The neck, wrists, and temples were instantly infused with a revitalizing coolness. This method allowed for a rapid reduction in overall body temperature and helped prevent heat stroke. Using one's own clothing as an air conditioner required ingenuity. Fabric bandages were lightly moistened with precious water and wrapped around the head. The hot wind blowing over the damp fabric created an evaporative cooling effect. Even a few drops of moisture could provide comfort for a long time. This principle is still used in modern desert gear. Seeking shelter in the shade of the rocks was an art in itself. Not every shade provided the expected relief from the midday heat. Dark basalt rocks accumulated heat and radiated it like ovens. Travelers sought out sandstone overhangs or light-colored rocks that reflected the sun's rays. Finding the right shelter meant conserving vital energy until evening. Even mealtimes were adjusted to suit the temperature conditions. The digestive process requires significant energy expenditure and raises body temperature. Therefore, during the day, food intake was reduced to an absolute minimum or eliminated entirely. The main meal was postponed until late at night, when the cool air set in. The body could digest food without the risk of triggering internal heat stroke. The use of natural resources for cooling demonstrates an incredible level of adaptation. Every stone, plant, or handful of soil could become a tool for survival. It was a constant intellectual battle against a ruthless environment. Do you agree that such cooling methods surpass modern technologies in their simplicity? And in the next chapter, you'll learn how they read invisible traces on bare rocks. The hidden truth that everyone keeps quiet about lies in a unique method of navigation. To the untrained eye, the desert seems like a completely empty and lifeless space. However, for the locals, it was an open book, full of vital information. They interpreted the terrain and atmospheric phenomena with phenomenal accuracy. Every gust of wind or change in the color of the horizon carried a specific meaning. These skills were passed down through years of rigorous training in the scorching wilderness. The direction of the wind served as a reliable compass in a landscape devoid of landmarks. Morning and evening breezes followed a strict pattern in the mountain canyons. Air currents carried the sense of distant moisture or blooming oases. By analyzing the temperature and density of the wind, one could determine the proximity of shelter. Streams of scorching air rising from the rocks indicated impassable sections of the route. Optical illusions caused by the heat were used to conceal movements. Mirages distorted perspective and concealed the true distance to objects. Knowing how light refracts over hot sand provided a tremendous advantage. It was possible to move within this distorted space while remaining invisible from a distance. Silhouettes blurred in the shimmering haze, turning people into ghostly shadows. Reading the stones replaced the usual tracks on soft ground. On the hard basalt plateaus, no footprints remained at all, but an overturned pebble or a shifted grain of sand could tell a whole story. A change in the color of the underside of a stone revealed a recent disturbance in the landscape. An experienced tracker could detect such microscopic changes over vast distances. Measuring the surface temperature helped determine how long ago an event had occurred. If an overturned rock had had time to heat up in the sun, it meant the event had happened a long time ago. A cool side that was now facing up indicated a recent presence of outsiders. This thermal method worked flawlessly under conditions of sharp temperature fluctuations. The desert itself recorded the chronology of events using the sun's rays. Navigation by the stars complemented daytime orientation methods. The night sky over the Great Plains and the southern canyons was incredibly clear. The constellations served as reliable landmarks during long nighttime treks. The position of the stars indicated the exact direction to hidden sources of life-giving moisture. Each tribe had its own maps of the starry sky, passed down orally. Sounds in open spaces traveled according to specific laws. Hot air muffled certain frequencies and amplified others many times over. The ability to listen to the silence made it possible to detect movement several kilometers away. The reflection of sound off the canyon's rock walls served as a natural radar. Even the faintest echo revealed the presence of obstacles or safe passages ahead. Studying dried-up riverbeds provided insight into the geological structure of the terrain. The dried-up arroyos served as natural roads with a solid surface. The pattern of cracks in the dried clay indicated how long ago the last rainfall had occurred. Based on these signs, predictions were made regarding the chances of finding hidden water. The land revealed its secrets through a complex pattern of geometric lines. Their memory for landscapes was honed to a level of photographic precision. Once a route had been traveled, it was memorized in every minute detail forever. The shape of a distant rock, or the curve of a canyon, became reliable landmarks. In monotonous terrain, the ability to distinguish details prevented one from going in circles. The mind constructed a clear three-dimensional model of the hostile world around them. These skills for reading the desert required tremendous concentration. A mistake in interpreting the signs inevitably led to catastrophic consequences. Knowledge of the laws of nature ensured absolute superiority over an unprepared opponent. The art of reading the invisible became legendary among the conquerors of the wildlands. If you enjoy learning about unique historical facts like this, be sure to like this video. What happens in the shadows of the sand dunes shatters all stereotypes about daytime activity. Choosing the right time to travel was the key to survival in this extreme environment. The sun dictated a strict schedule, and any deviation from it was punished by physical exhaustion. During the hours of peak solar activity, life on the scorching surface came to a complete standstill. Enemies unaccustomed to such a climate sought refuge in the shade of their shelters. It was precisely this state of absolute passivity on the part of the enemy that was exploited as a tactical advantage. The dead of night became the time for major operations and long marches. The air temperature dropped sharply, allowing the body to function without the risk of overheating. The coolness restored strength and ensured clear thinking for decision-making. In the darkness, it was possible to move quickly without leaving visible traces. This transformed nighttime travelers into invisible ghosts among the black rocks. Twilight was considered the ideal time for tactical maneuvers. The diffuse light concealed silhouettes, blending them into the surrounding rocky landscape. The sharp shadows cast by the setting sun distorted perspective and confused observers. During this brief period, it was possible to traverse the most dangerous open stretches. Their eyes adjusted to the twilight much faster than those of unaccustomed outsiders. Early morning was used for thorough reconnaissance and route planning. The cool air had not yet become filled with shimmering heat haze. Visibility over vast distances remained crystal clear and detailed. One could make out every crack in the rock on the horizon. During these hours, final decisions were made regarding the direction of further travel. The transition from night to day was accompanied by the essential search for shelter. Before the sun began to beat down, it was necessary to find reliable shade. The choice of campsite determined the chances of survival in the coming hours. The shelter had to provide not only coolness, but also a good vantage point. The group's safety depended on proper positioning on the terrain. At midday, activity dropped to absolutely zero. Remaining motionless was the main rule for conserving precious energy. Any movement caused a rise in body temperature, an unnecessary loss of moisture. People fell into a state of light drowsiness while remaining alert to their surroundings. This was a period of recuperation before the upcoming nighttime trek. The travel schedule was always planned with lunar cycles in mind. Bright moonlight illuminated the path, eliminating the need for artificial light sources. The absence of open flames made the group completely invisible from a distance. A full moon was considered the most favorable time for long-distance travel. Nature provided ideal lighting for a silent nighttime march. Changes in atmospheric pressure were also taken into account when planning the route. Before rare sandstorms, the air became unbearably heavy and thick. These moments were used for the most covert movements at the epicenter of the storm. A curtain of dust reliably concealed any actions from prying eyes. The risk was great, but the tactical advantage justified these bold maneuvers. The ability to live by the desert's clock gave them an undeniable advantage over any opponent. Synchronizing with nature's rhythms transformed the harsh environment into a faithful ally. Those who tried to impose their own rules quickly suffered a crushing defeat. Are you ready to learn the fundamental secret of survival in the waterless wasteland? In the next chapter, you'll discover how water became a formidable weapon. Water was the most precious commodity in desert conditions. Without a reliable source of moisture, any journey became a sure path to death. Indigenous peoples thoroughly studied the hydrology of arid regions. They knew the locations of groundwater pockets, hidden deep beneath the surface. This knowledge allowed them to survive where others would perish immediately. Natural reservoirs formed in the rocks after rainfall were called tinhas. These stone basins could retain fresh water for many months. They were located in deep, shaded gorges, protected from intense evaporation. The locations of these water sources were kept a closely guarded secret from outsiders. Only experienced guides could chart a route from one tinhas to another. There was a unique system for creating caches of this precious liquid. Water was poured into hollowed-out, airtight containers of organic origin, which were then buried. The locations of the caches were marked with barely visible signs on nearby solid rock. Such reserves were created along the main routes traveled by the hidden groups. In the event of unforeseen circumstances, these caches saved many lives. Extracting moisture from plants required specific botanical knowledge. Certain types of desert plants contained large amounts of watery pulp. By cutting off the top and crushing the core, one could extract life-sustaining juice. The roots of some shrubs also served as an excellent source of life-saving liquid. This method was used in the most extreme situations, when a water source was far away. Restricting water intake was elevated to an absolute cult. The body was trained to function on minimal amounts of precious moisture. To reduce dry mouth, a small, smooth pebble was placed under the tongue. This stimulated saliva production and helped combat the agonizing sensation of thirst. The psychological control over the urge to take a sip was incredibly strong. Control over water sources became a powerful strategic tool. By taking up positions around the few wells, it was possible to control vast territories. An enemy deprived of access to water became completely helpless and vulnerable. A common tactic was to wear down the enemy with long marches through arid terrain. Thirst broke morale much faster and more effectively than open combat. The quality of water from wild springs was sometimes extremely poor. The murky, stagnant liquid could contain many impurities, hazardous to health. To purify it, they used makeshift filters made of layers of sand and charcoal. This simplest of methods significantly improved the purity and safety of this life-sustaining water. Knowledge of basic sanitation was passed down along with the secrets of survival. Collecting dew in the early morning hours provided a small but important supply. Thick cloths spread out on bushes absorbed the morning condensation from the air. This moisture was then carefully squeezed into containers prepared for this purpose. In areas with sharp fluctuations between night and day temperatures, a great deal of dew formed. This method required no energy and provided the purest distilled water. Skillful management of water resources was the foundation of life in the desert. It was a constant struggle for every drop of life-giving, cool moisture. Superiority in this regard guaranteed dominance over the entire scorching territory. Water served both as a lifeline and as a deadly weapon against the enemy. The laws of the desert were harsh, but always fair to those who respected them. I will reveal the most closely guarded secret of the ancient nomads' engineering. Building shelters in the scorching wasteland required a deep understanding of the principles of thermodynamics. Under the midday sun, a typical structure would turn into a veritable furnace. A completely different approach was needed to design both temporary and permanent shaded encampments. Local builders masterfully utilized the thermal mass of natural geological formations to create comfort. These incredible engineering skills in extreme climates were honed over centuries. Canyons with sheer walls served as ideal natural structures. Their immense stone mass heated up slowly during the day and cooled down just as slowly at night. By choosing deep niches in these walls, people were able to maintain a stable, cool temperature. Canopies made of dense sandstone reliably shielded the interior from direct sunlight. The geometry of the gorges itself created a favorable microclimate for the group's long-term habitation. Semi-subterranean structures were used for temporary camps. A small depression dug into the ground allowed access to cooler layers of soil. A sturdy frame made of light branches interwoven with dry, stiff grass was erected on top. This dome-shaped structure provided excellent aerodynamics and resistance to strong, hot winds. The interior was reliably protected from dust storms and the scorching midday heat. Ventilation was a key factor in the design of any shelter. Special gaps were left at the base and at the top of the woven structure. This created a constant natural draft that drew hot air outward. The laws of convection worked to cool the space without the slightest additional effort. Even a light breeze provided the necessary influx of fresh oxygen into the shaded shelter. The reflective properties of materials were always taken into account when constructing roofs. Light-colored woods, sun-dried to a perfect natural whiteness, were used. Light-colored leaves were laid in dense layers on the outer surface of the temporary structure. This unique screen reflected a significant portion of the destructive and scorching solar radiation. The careful selection of materials protected against critical overheating at the height of the day. The location of the shelter's entrance was strictly oriented according to the cardinal directions. The doorway always faced the side where dense, cool shade was found. This prevented oblique morning or evening rays from entering the small space. Additionally, special woven screens were often installed in front of the entrance to diffuse the bright light. This architectural precision ensured a safe and incredibly peaceful daytime rest. Thermal insulation of the floor prevented heat transfer from the scorching sand. Thick layers of bark, dried seaweed, or dense large leaves were laid on the ground. This multi-layered cushion reliably blocked intense upward flows of geothermal heat. At the same time, it served as a soft and comfortable bed for extremely weary travelers. Every element of the structure always fulfilled several vital engineering functions at once. The genius of these engineering solutions lay in their utmost simplicity. No complex tools or hard-to-find, rare components were required for construction. All the necessary materials were literally right at their feet on the surrounding rocky, dry slopes. The ability to see enormous potential in simple things set these true, recognized masters of survival apart. Their architecture was in complete harmony with the unforgiving landscape of the boundless, lifeless desert. This engineering approach to survival demonstrates the highest level of adaptation among these cultures. Each structure was the result of centuries of experience and deep, practical, empirical knowledge. They didn't just build shelters, they constructed flawless systems for reliable climate control. Would you like to spend a day in such an ideal natural shelter in the middle of the desert? In the next chapter, we'll learn how to breathe properly during extreme treks. Moving across scorching ground required specific whole-body biomechanics. The usual gait of an unaccustomed person led to rapid depletion of all internal resources. The hard impact of the heel striking the ground transmitted destructive vibrations throughout the exhausted body. The indigenous people used a technique known as the gliding, silent, smooth stride. The foot touched the surface very gently, starting with the outer, firm arch of the foot. This technique provided excellent shock absorption with every step, keeping ligaments and joints in perfect condition. Foot placement was controlled down to the tiniest millimeters of space. Before shifting the body's full weight, the foot would carefully feel out the scorching ground. This allowed them to avoid sharp rocks, long thorns, or unstable, loose surfaces. The risk of injury, far from a safe base, was reduced to an absolute minimum. The fluidity of his movements completely eliminated sudden spikes in heart rate and unnecessary strain on the large muscles. The body's center of gravity remained in constant balance, shifted slightly forward. This position created the effect of a controlled fall, greatly facilitating forward movement. The legs did not so much push the heavy body forward as simply catch its falling weight. Muscle energy expenditure was reduced by nearly half with this method of walking. The traveler could cover enormous distances without experiencing severe physical exhaustion. The breathing rhythm was strictly synchronized with the frequency and length of each step. One long inhalation through the nose corresponded to 3 or 4 exceptionally smooth steps. Exhalation was done very slowly, through slightly parted lips, maintaining pressure in the lungs. This hyperventilation enriched the blood with oxygen, permanently preventing painful muscle spasms. Proper breathing was the key to maintaining a clear mind under conditions of severe heat stress. Minimizing moisture loss through the respiratory tract was the most critical task. Keeping the mouth open in the scorching air led to the immediate drying out of vital mucous membranes. Breathing in through the nose warmed the air on cold nights and humidified it on hot days. The complex system of nasal sinuses acted as an excellent natural filter against fine dust. This simple practice consistently conserved liters of water in the body during an exhausting march. The position of the arms during strenuous walking also had a strict functional purpose. They did not dangle loosely at the sides, but were always held in a slightly bent position. This prevented swelling of the hands caused by a strong rush of blood during prolonged, uninterrupted walking. The minimal range of arm movement further conserved energy throughout the exhausted body. The entire silhouette was tightly compacted and moved like a single, monolithic, well-oiled machine. The speed of movement was never constant throughout the long route. The pace was skillfully adjusted depending on the air temperature and the terrain. On steep ascents, the stride became short and frequent to maintain an even breathing rhythm. On long descents, the body relaxed, allowing Earth's gravity to do most of the hard work. The judicious distribution of effort reliably allowed for maintaining a high average speed over the entire distance. Obstacles were navigated without sudden jumps or abrupt bursts of speed. Any rock or fallen tree trunk was stepped over smoothly, maintaining a fluid, unbroken rhythm of movement. A sudden jump always placed a tremendous strain on the tired leg muscles and the heart. Going around obstacles was very often more advantageous than attempting to force a direct head-on crossing. The flexibility of their movement tactics perfectly compensated for the challenges posed by the harsh and unforgiving natural terrain. The unit's group movement required perfect synchronization from all members of the expedition. The men marched strictly in single file, creating a single narrow trail for their entire unit. The person leading the way bore the main burden of charting the correct path and making decisions. The leader of the column changed periodically to allow a tired fighter to regain some strength. This teamwork ensured a high average speed and safety for each individual traveler. The effectiveness of the gliding step was proven by numerous incredibly successful long-distance treks. This technique transformed a long, grueling journey into a very measured and deeply meditative process. The physical limitations of the human body were significantly expanded thanks to the correct approach to the process of movement. These ancient methods remain relevant for any extreme survival situation in harsh climatic conditions. Nature generously rewarded only those who knew how to adapt perfectly to its harsh rhythms. Choosing the right clothing was a matter of survival on the vast, scorching, rocky plateaus. Ordinary, heavy fabrics quickly became unusable and caused severe, life-threatening overheating of the body. The traditional materials used by the indigenous peoples were always characterized by their lightness and unique thermoregulatory properties. Specially tanned leather served as the primary raw material for creating reliable desert gear. During the tanning process, it became incredibly soft, highly porous, and exceptionally breathable. The color of the clothing played a decisive role in the endless battle against solar radiation. Dark shades absorbed light and heated up instantly, turning into unbearably hot, dense armor. Therefore, preference was given only to the natural light colors of tanned leather and natural plant fibers. Beige and sandy tones perfectly reflected the destructive rays of the merciless, scorching sun. Furthermore, these shades provided ideal visual camouflage against the backdrop of rocks and hot sand. The cut of the protective tunics and pants was as loose as possible and did not restrict movement in the slightest. A stream of life-saving fresh air was meant to circulate freely between the thick fabric and the skin. This air layer functioned flawlessly as a natural barrier between the external heat and the body. Tight-fitting clothing quickly impaired blood circulation and inevitably led to rapid heat stroke. Comfort while moving was always prioritized over absolutely any visual or aesthetic preferences. Protecting the feet required special attention due to the extremely high temperature of the rocky ground. Moccasins were designed with reinforced soles made of several layers of the coarsest and thickest leather. The upper part of the footwear always remained soft to ensure the necessary constant ventilation for tired feet. Insoles made of dense, dried vegetation or coarse natural fibers were often placed inside. The grass absorbed excess accumulated moisture and served as an excellent shock absorber during long, exhausting walks. To protect the head, lightweight headbands or very wide leather protective bands were designed. They reliably prevented stinging sweat from getting into the eyes during the most intense physical exertion. Hair was often pulled back high at the nape of the neck, exposing the neck to cooling, occasional gusts of wind. Long strands of hair served as excellent natural protection against severe sunburn on the back of the neck. Every detail of their appearance had a strict and specific practical function in a survival context. The use of natural camouflage elements made the gear even more sophisticated and functional. Dry, light-colored twigs of wormwood or other small local shrubs were often woven into the clothing. This effectively blurred a person's silhouette, making them indistinguishable from the sparse vegetation around them. The scent of bitter wormwood reliably masked the natural body odor, throwing off any trackers from a hostile unit. Visual and olfactory camouflage worked flawlessly in perfect, coordinated, and inseparable tandem. Lightweight wraps were the primary and most essential item of clothing during the hottest months of the year. They provided maximum natural ventilation to the pelvic area, preventing dangerous overheating of the internal organs. Long strips of lightweight fabric, hanging down at the front and back, provided protection from sharp thorns and rocks. This phenomenally simple design allowed for rapid movement along the most challenging, narrow mountain trails. The minimalist approach to clothing was fully justified by the brutal and unforgiving temperature extremes of the desert region. Essential gear was carried using ingenious and complex systems of woven belts. Heavy bags and pouches distributed the weight as evenly as possible across the fighter's sturdy frame. The belts were painstakingly woven from strong plant fibers or cut from the thickest rawhide. Secure attachment points were positioned so as to avoid chafing the skin during rapid movement. Having free hands was critically important for maintaining balance and reacting quickly to threats. All equipment was maintained rigorously and regularly at every extended, safe stop. Leather footwear was thoroughly cleaned of hot sand and tiny, incredibly sharp stones that had become lodged inside. When necessary, reliable patches were applied, using spare pieces of leather and strong sinew thread. Torn straps were quickly replaced with new ones, woven from stiff plant materials found on hand. The condition of the gear was absolutely synonymous with personal safety and the highest chance of survival on any expedition. This gear, masterfully crafted from the gifts of a harsh natural environment, was ideal for these unbearable conditions. It did not resist the aggressive environment, but blended incredibly harmoniously within its very harsh constraints. Innovations arose solely from the daily necessity of staying alive under the merciless, scorching sun. Modern, durable outdoor fabrics largely simply replicate these ancient, fundamental principles. The wisdom of the ancient tailors saved hundreds of lives where any technology brought by white settlers had failed. Survival in 100-degree heat began not with physiology, but with a perfectly attuned mind. Psychological preparation was the absolute key to overcoming unbearable and extreme thermal stress. Fear of the vast wilderness instantly paralyzed the will and led to a series of fatal mistakes. That is why nomadic peoples long cultivated a deep respect, but not an animalistic fear for nature. They calmly accepted the heat as an inevitable reality, one with which it was utterly pointless to enter into direct conflict. Calm acceptance of a difficult situation conserved an enormous amount of incredibly important nervous energy. Meditative practices were actively used to slow down all the internal rhythms of an overheated body. Focusing on the monotonous sound of footsteps or breathing was an excellent way to distract oneself from the most severe physical discomfort. The mind would gradually slip into a state of light trance, where pain and intense thirst were felt only very faintly. In this unusual state, the perception of time was greatly distorted, making the long, grueling hours of marching seem shorter. A person would completely detach from the suffering of their body, becoming an impassive and detached observer. The perception of physical pain was radically and completely different from the familiar European classical approach. Pain from blistered feet or burns was perceived solely as ordinary information from nerve receptors. It did not cause panic, but merely served as a quiet signal to be more careful and attentive. There were special techniques for smooth breathing, designed to significantly lower the pain threshold during long walks. The body unconditionally obeyed the commands of the will, completely ignoring discomfort in order to achieve the primary, vital task. Patience was the most important virtue of any truly experienced scout of the boundless plains and canyons. The ability to lie completely still for hours under the scorching sun required titanic and steely endurance. Waiting for the right moment to strike or retreat could go on unceasingly from early morning until dusk. The impatient quickly perished, giving themselves away with careless, sudden movements or the slightest accidental noise. The desert taught the art of waiting harshly, rewarding only those who knew how to blend in with the eternal rhythm of the rocks. The rituals and ceremonies performed before a difficult crossing effectively and reliably strengthened the spirit of all the assembled warriors. Appealing to the elements of nature instilled firm confidence in their own abilities in the face of any danger. Belief in the invisible protection of the spirits of the earth and sky created an incredibly powerful psychological shield. An inner, unshakable confidence in success had a direct and positive effect on the biochemical processes in the body. Doubts quickly vanished, giving way to a cool and firm resolve to accomplish the difficult task at hand. Mutual support within a close-knit group was built on absolute and boundless trust in one another. Everyone was absolutely certain that their comrades would never abandon them in times of trouble, whether due to injury or severe exhaustion. This warm sense of camaraderie lifted an enormous burden of psychological strain from each individual. The division of responsibilities and collective decision-making minimized the risk of fatal and tragic errors. The detachment, functioning as a single unified organism, always worked more cohesively and far more effectively than any disparate group of random individuals. The psyche shaped a reality in which survival became the only possible and acceptable outcome. Iron discipline of the mind allowed the body to steadfastly endure extreme and unimaginable thermal stress. It was precisely this incredible strength of spirit that made the indigenous peoples the unrivaled masters of the scorching wastelands. Their psychological superiority over the enemy was just as significant as their perfect knowledge of the complex terrain. Self-mastery was the first and most crucial step toward gaining mastery over the searing horizon. The end of a long raid required no less intense concentration than its very beginning. The return to base camp was always accompanied by accumulated fatigue and the utter depletion of the body's reserves. At that moment, it was absolutely forbidden to relax, due to the high risk of losing vigilance and control. Many fatal mistakes were made precisely during the final kilometers of the journey, when the goal seemed within reach. Experienced team leaders significantly tightened discipline as they approached their familiar shaded shelters. The gradual transition out of the strict water and food rationing regime required the utmost medical caution. Consuming large amounts of fluid all at once could easily cause shock in a severely dehydrated body. They drank water in very small sips, stretching the life-saving process of rehydration over several long and agonizing hours. They began eating only light, easily digestible plant-based foods, or delicate dried provisions. The restoration of physiological functions proceeded extremely gradually so as not to overload their weakened internal organs in any way. Covering their tracks as they approached the camp was carried out with particular, incredible, and obsessive care. There was a tremendous danger of leading enemy scouts straight to the tribe's hidden, secure settlement. The final miles of the route very often ran exclusively along rocky terrain or the hard beds of streams. The group could silently fan out in different directions, only to later meet up at the camp one by one. This skillful tactic of dispersal reliably protected the camp from sudden discovery by persistent pursuers. Sharing gathered information about enemy movements or new water sources was always a top priority. Scouts immediately reported to their elders any minor changes in the landscape or footprints they found. This data was immediately analyzed at a grand council to plan the tribe's future long-distance journeys. The experience gained from each individual expedition became the collective property of the entire group, adding to a vast shared body of knowledge. The oral tradition reliably preserved this strategically important and invaluable information for future generations. An assessment of equipment wear and tear was conducted immediately upon returning to a safe and cool place. Worn-out moccasins and heavily frayed straps were set aside for urgent repair or complete replacement. Tools were cleaned of the ubiquitous corrosive dust, and structural components were loosened to preserve the flexibility of the framework. Readiness for a new sudden expedition had to be constantly maintained at a consistently high operational level. No one ever knew when circumstances would suddenly force them to set out once more into the scorching, lifeless wastelands. The experience of surviving at temperatures well above 120 degrees shaped an incredibly unique character. These remarkable people were forged in the crucible of the harshest climate on the boundless North American continent. Their phenomenal resilience and endurance became the stuff of legend among many European colonists and military personnel. Army officers were deeply impressed by the indigenous people's ability to vanish without a trace into the scorching, shimmering heat haze. This was not merely the art of movement. It was an entire philosophy of complete, inseparable unity with nature. The legacy of these remarkable methods continues to be studied in detail by survival experts across the vast world. Instructors of elite units are adopting unique breathing and thermoregulation techniques from these ancient, experienced nomads. The principles of strict energy conservation and camouflage in open terrain have remained absolutely unchanged for centuries. Modern technology is completely incapable of fully replacing the instincts and wisdom gained from deep field experience. The human factor always and everywhere remains the decisive element in the struggle against the mighty forces of nature. To this day, the desert reliably guards countless incredible, undiscovered secrets about the lives of these resilient peoples. Hidden beneath heavy layers of sand and within the labyrinths of canyons lie astonishing testimonies to their greatest triumphs. They have conclusively proven that life is possible even where the harshest natural conditions would suggest otherwise. Their profound knowledge stands as a testament to the human mind, which has brilliantly overcome extreme temperatures and terrifying conditions. The story of their adaptation is deeply inspiring and compels us to take a fresh look at the limits of our physical capabilities. The end of each expedition was merely a brief and pleasant respite before a completely new challenge. Life in constant motion was strictly dictated by the harsh laws of the arid and boundless American territories. The scorching, barren lands continued to endlessly test the mettle of anyone who dared to challenge them. But for those brave souls who knew the secrets of a steady stride and hidden water, these lands were home. The triumph of unyielding human will over the deadly heat will forever remain a great and awe-inspiring chapter in history. The story of survival in extreme temperatures vividly demonstrates the remarkable strength and ingenuity of the indigenous peoples of North America. Their unique methods of transforming the scorching desert from a deadly trap into a tactical advantage command deep respect. What other historical mysteries and secrets of survival in harsh conditions interest you? Suggest topics in the comments for future videos that you'd like to see on our channel. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new exciting explorations of life in the past.